Pleased to extend a warm welcome to Baptiste Isambert, who joins us today and is and into the future as independent chair of our Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. This committee looks forward to working with you, Baptiste, and to the valuable contributions and improvements we can identify and achieve together for the best practice of the Shire's operations.
Need to get used to this. Thank you, Shire President. Welcome you all to the Shire of Pilbara Audit Committee meeting of 14th of April 2026, held in the Newman Council Chambers, which are declared open at 2:01 p.m. I commence today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Nyabali people, and their continuing connection to the land, waters, and community. I also acknowledge the Martu people as the custodian of the Jigalong, which sits in Nyabali country. We pay our respects to all the elders, past, present, and emerging. May I ask everyone present to turn off and refrain from using their mobile phones for the duration of the meeting. Tablets and laptops are permitted for the purpose of accessing agenda items and notes. I advise all those in attendance that this meeting is being audio recorded, which can be accessed by members of the public and the media, and committee members should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Item 2, attendance by electronic means. We got a request to attend the meeting by electronic means as we received from Councillor Wendy Brooks online, which has been approved by the Shire President in accordance with Regulation 14C of the Local Government Regulation 1996. Item 3, record of attendance. So we got Shire President Middleton, as I said, Councillor Brooks, Wilter Brooks online, Councillor Troy Patching as well, and the Stephen Harding, the CEO, and his executive leadership team, and the Shire officers as well. We got 2 apologies, Councillor Peter Bear and Councillor Lou Lockyer. And we don't have any leave of absence. Item 4, disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosure of interest to be made in relation to any item on today's agenda? No? No, no declaration. Item 5, declaration by concerned members to have given due consideration to all matters contained in the business papers. So can I ask all committee members present to make the following declaration that I confirm, and I'll start by saying I confirm that I'm familiar with the contents of the committee agenda and supporting documentation for this meeting.
Yep, I can confirm that I am familiar with the contents of the council agenda and supporting documents for this meeting.
Thank you.
I, Wendy Brooks, can confirm that I am familiar with the contents of the council agenda and the supporting documents for this meeting.
Thank you.
Troy Patching can confirm that I'm familiar with the contents of the council agenda and supporting documents for this meeting.
Thank you very much for your confirmations. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous council meetings. Item 6.1 is presented before you. The officer recommendation reads that the ordinary minutes of the audit committee meeting held on 11 of December 2025 as published on the Shire website and council portal be confirmed as true and correct records of proceedings. Can I get a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Shire President Middleton. Can I get a second? Sorry, I can't see you, Councillor Whitterbrooks. Yes, and thank you. Are there any further changes to the minutes that council members are seeking? No.
No, thank you.
Okay, I shall now put this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Fun fact, you can actually approve minutes for meetings you were not part of, so that's why I can approve. So moving on to the officers' reports, and before I jump in, I suppose I just want to make sure we get a very good discussion on some of those items. By all means, this is a safe space to ask questions, and it's not a tick-the-box exercise, so feel free to ask any questions as we go through it. Item 7.1.1 is the draft policy internal controls. As presented before you, the recommendation reads that the committee provides feedback on the draft internal control policies and endorses the policy for consideration. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Mark Whitterbrooks. A second. Thank you, Shire President Middleton. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the names. Would the mover or the seconder speak towards the motion? No?
No, thank you. I'm happy with what I see. That's
okay.
I'm also happy with that. It's good.
Is anyone against it? Does maybe administration want to just have a quick 1-minute presentation? Just obviously take those papers as read, but just in case there was something you wanted to highlight in this paper.
Yeah, so nothing to really add to the paper, but this was part of the Regulation 17 review, and this was one of the recommendations that came from that. This is really just a good overview of how the internal audit function is going to operate and the internal controls. that we are looking for and making sure that we are auditing correctly. So that's sort of overview.
Thank you. Any questions from our members on this? No?
So straightforward, familiar. It's similar to another audit and risk committee that I belong to. So it's good to have a process and procedure in place, and that this suite of policies certainly do that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mike Whitterbrooks. That's indeed quite a good document to have and to be endorsed by this ARIC. I think makes it, a pretty good process in terms of mandate as well for the internal audit function and the internal control policy. I suppose just a reminder that obviously internal controls is the responsibilities of everyone, not just internal auditors. Some people would think so. Yeah, look, great document. Thank you for putting this together, and I think we're all happy to proceed with the vote. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.1.2, as presented before you, the recommendation reads that the committee notes the draft council members' supplier conflict interest management guidance attached as Appendix 1 to the report and endorses the guidance for operational implementation. Can I have a mover for this one? Thank you, Councillor Mike Whitterbrooks, and a second. Thank you.
If I could, through the chair. So this document that's been created is very much around the rules always were applied, and certainly it sort of just outlines very clearly disclosures that need to be made by, really it's by councillors on the whole, and how we're going to manage potential conflict. We are in a smaller town in relation to service provision, so there is always that opportunity or chance of crossover between services you may provide and how council manages the services it takes on. And this is just the policy which we're recommending for all councils actually to really have a good, strong understanding of, because this is how we're approaching it. We actually spoke to the inspector in relation to this policy, because we want to make sure that we got this relatively in a strong position, and he made some subtle changes which we've implemented here, and making this a generic document across all councillors so that you are very strongly aware of your obligations and what you have to do. So I really implore councillors to read this in detail and understand how it's going to be treated so that you're protected.
Thank you, CEO. Is there any question or comments on this? Yes, Councillor Mike Whitterbrooks.
Yes, I'd just like to go to point 2 in the policy where it talks about the legislative and governance framework. The Local Government Act and the Code of Conduct, the administration and our own policies and what is in place is discussed here. I'd like to know, is it necessary to refer to things like the Fraud and Corruption Act, the ACCC's governing framework, or the Trade Practices Act at all in these, or is what we have got here sufficient, please?
Josh.
Through the chair, look, it probably isn't necessary given the cross-reference that a lot of these policies that are already there make. There's also it's important to just to consider that things like the Crime and Misconduct Act, we have a legal obligation to abide by that in any case. This is it hasn't, I suppose, informed necessarily any of the, I suppose, the detailed points in this, but look, they do have an application and are certainly referenced heavily in the purchasing policy and the an integrity framework. However, I'll certainly make a note of it, and as this is an operational internal policy, it's certainly something that we can add to the document.
If I can just add to that through the chair, this is a guidance for council and suppliers. It's not a guidance for what we would need to do if there was what we would call a breach of the rules of local government. If there was that, then there is obligations on myself as the CEO to report certain activities, and we would do that without fail, or we would need to. It's a requirement. This is around the front end about the rules that we would need to comply with so that we don't end in that situation. So it's probably not, if this was for officers, we would put it in there. I think this is more for councillor / supply guidance, to be clear.
Yep. Thanks for that. You can blame me for that, but that's all right. No, it's good. I'm glad you got the outsource support from others around writing that.
Just a question from me for administration. Would it make sense to, because it's obviously very much focused on conflict of interest from a financial perspective, but should we maybe elaborate a little bit on impartiality and proximity interest? Even though they're not as strong, obviously, in terms of decision making. If you got a financial interest, you need to remove yourself from the decision making. But if you got an impartiality or proximity interest, it's not always the case. So whether or not there is merit in adding a little bit the difference between those type of conflicts.
It makes sense to me, but then our challenge becomes a case of quorum. Because if we had a supplier who was in the room and then someone else who was, say, an office bearer of a sporting club that the Shire was going to sponsor, for instance, the supply of a service to that sporting club or to their assets, then you would potentially lose quorum for any decision. So, yeah, okay. I understand that we need to, it has to be a transparent case, but my concern is amongst quorum.
So through the chair, I guess the initial drafting of this is really around the financial elements, and there is certainly rules around proximity and the likes, of which council does need to make a judgment call. If we put something in this policy, and I don't think there's no reason why we can't, it would need to be very high level, and it would still require council laws to determine their interest. I don't think, and I take your point, Wendy, I don't think we can worry about quorum. I just think you have to find another way of getting an outcome. If quorum's lost, then there are other ways that can be dealt with, and then bring it back so that we can get a quorum. But I think at the end of the day, if you think you've got an interest, you have an interest, and you decide whether you think it's. So we can define what proximity is in this, Josh, I suppose, as an amendment, as a second version of this. So we can adopt this, if you're so pleased, as it is, and we could add those additional components to it. I think that's probably not an irrelevant issue. To give some guidance around proximity. I know we do training on this, and we go through it, and you get your updates, and we explain what proximity is, and financial, and all that sort of stuff. But we can put it out in concrete in this guidance document, so that councils can actually make their own judgment calls whether they need to declare or not declare. That might make sense. We can do that. Yes, sure.
Through the chair, I think it's a really important point to make that this guidance doesn't have any impact or bearing on a council member's responsibility to take full responsibility for disclosing any conflicts of interest they have in whatever form they are. So the loss of quorum is not something that council member should have any bearing on how the council member manages or determines whether to disclose or not. That becomes a problem for the administration basically to work out, and there are methods of working around that. It's I think it is, I just think it's important to be quite clear that these do not make any change or alter in any way a council member's legal obligations with respect to those interests, which are all clearly defined in the in the Act.
Thank you, Josh. So in terms of putting this motion forward, are we comfortable with the current draft? Or are we happy to include some wording around impartiality interest and proximity interest just to cover our bases in terms of the different interests? Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Thank you. So I guess Josh on that one, because we are.
It's in-
Yes, Councillor Mike
Through
Witterbrooks.
the chair, would it come into perhaps 8.1, because 8 deals with the council member responsibilities and obligations, but yes, on relevant matters. Rob.
So if it pleases council, can I make a recommendation through the chair that we add a third point, saying to the point that the CEO be requested to incorporate other interests within the guiding document for future consideration or something along those lines, rather than try and do this on the run. Let's do a well-considered approach and put it all in there so it's really solid and makes sense.
Yes.
Does that work for you?
So you are suggesting we defer?
No, I'm not saying defer. I say we put a third dot point.
Oh, third dot point, yeah.
So
Oh,
we
you
dot
have it
as
on
is.
screen. Yeah.
Yep, and then we add, we incorporate
So we need.
just as an additional thing.
Yeah,
and then-
yeah.
and then-
So that's an amendment. So I'm happy to move that amendment. If there's anyone who wants to second that amendment, just yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
I'm happy to second that if you haven't.
Thank you,
thought of
Councillor
any.
Mike Witterbrooks. Yeah, we'll put you as a seconder.
Thank you.
We're just giving Josh a little bit of time to.
Just trying to remember the section.
We'll put section 5, but we'll need to,
I will double check this.
we'll check the section,
I'll
put
get it
the correct section in there, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I think we can
good.
live with that. Again, we're trying to make it formal, but not too formal. So I suppose we can now put this to the vote. So all those in favor of this amendment? Thank you. Do we need to vote on the original motion or?
Through the chair, just my suggestion on how to manage this procedurally is that if the mover and seconder are happy with the additional point, that it just form part of the motion and just put the question, and if they are, then put the question as 1, 2, 3 and be done with it once.
Okay, so I'm happy with that as a mover.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy. Thank you.
Yes. So now we're putting it to the vote. All those in favor? I can't see you, Mike Brooks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're back on. Yep, thank you very much. Carried unanimously. Next item is, sorry, I'm jumping in, 7.1.3, the Internal Audit Charter, Manual and Quality Assurance Improvement Plan. As presented before you, the recommendation reads that the committee endorses the updates made to the Internal Audit Charter, Quality Assurance and Improvement Program, and Internal Audit Manual. I'm happy to move this motion as the chair. Can I get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mike Witterbrooks. So I'm just as a mover, I'm happy with, the sort of straightforward document. It's actually quite good to have that in place. Not all local government have that sort of level of details in terms of, putting the internal audit manual. So we have full transparency as ARIC members about, what the internal audit function does and how they do it. So I think it's quite good. So really just wanted to see if there was any question from our members on this. No?
No question. May I just comment that when reading it through the first time, my question was who was actually managing the chief audit executive, which could be more than one person, and it's clearly stated in the manual that chain of command comes through Josh, through the manager of governance. So I'm quite satisfied with that structure, and very pleased to see that there's a clear framework of how this operates.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor, for your statement. Was there anything, sorry, I didn't give the opportunity to administration, was there anything you wanted to highlight in those three documents for the purpose of this meeting?
No, thank you. No, for me, no, thank you. It's all very straightforward, as you had stated yourself. I'm happy with that, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. If there is no any other further question, I'm happy to put this to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion carried unanimously. Next item, 7.1.4. As presented before you, the recommendation reads that the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee notes the draft IRIC work plan framework and proposed priority focus areas, provide feedbacks on the proposed areas of focus, including any additional matters for inclusion, provides direction on the preferred timing, sequencing and level of reporting for work plan items, and endorses the development of a final IRIC work plan to be presented at the next meeting, incorporating committee feedback. Can I please have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Middleton. Can I get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McWhirter-Brooks. Would you like to speak to this motion, mover or seconder?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
Is there anything from administration, and I know you've included some prompts as well for a few questions for Eric to respond on, but was there anything you wanted to highlight in this report, in this work plan, because it's quite an important one, because that's how we work together and achieve for the next 12 to 24 months. I just wanted to know from your perspective, was there any key guidance from us that you need? I got some comments or questions, but I'm keen to hear from administration first.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, this work plan is essentially a list of options, opportunities, a bit of a wish list of things. It's not contemplated that the committee is going to get anywhere near through all of this, because there's a fair bit of work that would be required both from the administration and the and this committee. There's a few things that I think will be fundamental, particularly this ongoing quarterly reporting. But we're keen to hear what the committee and the chair's view is on the kind of priorities. We would like there to be a little bit of focus by the committee on developing our risk framework. That's an area of where we have a fair bit of work to do and would certainly, I think, benefit from the input. There's a range of other issues, but relating to contract management, procurement, those areas again which are probably a little bit higher on the risk side. But yeah, we're happy to get some feedback from you and work over the next couple of months preparing something that's workable both for the committee and for us over either 12 to 18 months.
Thank you.
To take any questions.
Thank you, Josh. Any feedback from our members on this work plan, and what do you really want to see as an ARIC member? Is there any priority or things that you're worried about, or that you think you would want to get a report on certain risks, or is there anything from that wish list that I'm keen to transform that wish list into an actionable plan that we can actually deliver on collectively? So yeah, keen to hear from every ARIC member in terms of what's your view on all those deliverables and that are displayed on the work plan. Which one is really critical to you, I suppose? Yes, Councillor McWhirter-Brooks. Yeah.
Yes, achievement of the community plan, the council plan, which is the new terminology for it. Non-achievement of that is our greatest risk, outside of fraud and overspending or whatever. So I'm keen to see us put this list into a calendar and then develop the list further into subsets and extra points as they emerge, please.
Thank you. So I think, consider you referring to key risks, and that's in line with my sort of comments in terms of an administration around maturing our risk management approach. I think our reporting needs to basically be built on key risks, which I don't think we have defined, and again, I'm happy for administration to jump in, but I don't think we have really defined our key risks, or even a risk appetite statement is usually what you would have in any local government, which is basically how much risk you're willing to take on certain categories, from health and safety or compliance, etc., etc. So I think there's some merit, and for me, that's a key priority for this forum and for administration, is to build that risk management function, and starting with a framework, like what administration has put forward. I would just make a comment that the risk appetite statement needs to come first, or pretty quickly after the risk management framework, and not in 12 months' time, which is, I think, is what we got at the moment. So, yeah, sorry. To you.
Yeah, that's through the chair. I guess historically, what we've done is when we bring up a council item, we talk about risk very high level, and whether it be financial or reputational or whatever the issues are, depending on the item that we're discussing. So we have been sort of covering risk at a very high level, but we haven't formally formalised it. And I think that's the only thing I would say. So again, even though I suggest, and we did speak about this earlier today, we certainly could try and put down on paper some of that stuff that we're talking about. It doesn't take away from the matter that I believe that as an administration, that when we bring up a certain item, that we would talk about that risk anyway, but it could formalise, and I think we've got a pretty good handle on what you see as good risk and bad risk, but we could formalise that and get some sort of endorsement that we haven't overthought something or underthought something. So I think that's something that we certainly can develop over the next period. Yep.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And I think it will be useful to have, some councils again have risk workshops with the councillors. That's that's quite common, and because you might be clear in your sort of discussion what the risks are, but it's actually across the organisation as well.
So it's formalisation of it.
Yeah. So I think that's quite useful. I guess my comments as well in line with what Josh mentioned in terms of making sure we achieve. So I just want to make sure we put together a plan for the next ARIC that is achievable, conscious of resources from the time, financials, and so on. So we just got to be mindful of what can be achieved and hold ourselves to account in terms of what we can achieve and what we can't, because there's a lot in that list. And look, it's a journey, right? This is continuous improvement. I support other local government where, the sort of the bar, you're just bringing people on the journey and you're getting better every quarter. So I think if we just aim to get better every quarter, then that's great and moving into the right direction. I mean, if we got all this, that's great, but it's also, I don't want to turn into a death by reporting and having a 250-page document that no one ends up reading the whole thing because it's just too long. So, I'm sorry.
So through the chair, I guess when we were putting this paper together, there was a lot more items on here, and we took a lot of items off.
Right.
And the ones that we thought that were straight up, they're probably a bit of overkill given the time to produce the documents required. So probably, what we'd probably appreciate would be for council to have a look at these specific ones and which ones you think is important, because we tried not to dilute it too much, but I do think some of these are more key than others, and there's some of these that could be taken out that will have no impact on our understanding or risk to this organisation, but other ones are probably more pertinent and important. So really would like to, even if it's not today, do we get some feedback on the ones that you sort of don't care about as much as you do with the others, so that we can prioritise them. And certainly, I concur with the chair that we don't want to have a heap here that we produce something that maybe not as good quality either, by the way, because we're trying to stretch the resources to get them done. But the ones that are super important are the ones that we want to make sure that we're coming back to with information. There's certain ones we can't take out, and like the car and other ones, they must be in here because we've got it's a statutory obligation. But some of these other ones, they're important, but some are more important than others. So what's important to councillors is what we're asking.
Yep, through the chair, my two main ones are procurement framework. I think by September, I think in my opinion, needs to happen sooner rather than later. I think that's a mighty important part, and be aware of that from previous practices here. But also the contract management practices as well. I think that's a huge risk to us, and to have it so late in the piece. We engage a lot of contractors, and to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's, because that can leave us wide open for huge risk if something goes pear-shaped on particular jobs or whatever.
That's good. Anything else from our other councillors in terms of what's important to you?
I'd like to make sure that we are covering our OC health and safety policy and delivery, because we, as councillors, we don't necessarily know when there has been a lost time injury until recently, but we need to be sure that we're not going to lose someone because of a death or lose a limb, or something that is going to be both a social challenge, a financial challenge, and a reputational challenge.
Absolutely, concur.
So I thank you, Councillor, for these comments. So I suppose what I'm hearing as well is sort of focus areas from a risk perspective, which is quite useful. And what we've done again in other local government is that we're getting a bit of a deep dive. So we're asking administration to just do a bit of a deep dive in terms of the risks we're facing for certain areas. And then that person who is the directorate, the head of the directorate, basically present, those sort of key risks and what they're doing about it. So that gives us some comfort as ARIC members that, work and safety, for example, is sort of managed, or, procurement risks and contract management, and what are we doing about it? Because as, ARIC members, we may want to get some comfort over that through either internal audit. That could be internal audit, but that's, third line of defense. But there's also some, getting the SME actually in the room to talk about what they're actually doing on a sort of day-to-day. I think it's quite powerful as well. Just it gives us some comfort that, things are in control per se. So yeah, that's for your consideration. In terms of my priorities, as I mentioned, the sort of risk management is there. What I'd not too keen about is I saw accounting policy changes. That's, we're going to bore people to death if we just bring that up. So, let's leave that to the external auditors to brief us, and they actually do it as part of the exit meeting and so on. So that's probably the only thing I want to raise as well is the OAG meeting. So it's quite important that they come here or online, but they present their report to us in terms of an exit meeting. So whether or not we get the full forum of ARIC, but that's something that's quite important to get some comfort that, around the financial statements. So I think there was some comments, again, external audit plan strategy, not sure what that is, that probably can go. But in my mind, the management later point, which is the findings, and the financial statement should come in the same time. That's usually how it works. So they just present the financial statements, the findings that go with it, and then we, recommend to council for approval. So that's sort of normal process. So I think there's just some tidy up here, but yeah, that for me is quite important. Just getting the OAG to sort of talk through, and they usually have audit reports and so some of the things they've looked at. So it's quite useful. Any further comments or questions on that? No.
Just conscious the OAG are quite expensive. So to try and get that done, will add significant cost probably to the top end. I mean, I understand the the importance of it, but geez, they don't miss us on the dollars at the end.
So current practice, just so everyone knows, that particularly councils that it's more recent, when we have an OAG, we had an OAG introduction meeting only last week. There'll be a pre-audit, there'll be an audit about September-ish, and then they're trying to bring it forward this year, so they're going to try and sign off by November. And then generally speaking, the administration plus the Shire President and myself sit down and we go with them, and they go through any issues, points of improvement, where we're doing good, where we could do some improvement. So that's the current practice, and we do get a report as a result of that as well. So that's our current practice, just so you know.
Yeah. So I guess in other local government, it's essentially the same, except that at the exit meeting, you have the ARIC members invited to the exit meeting. So it wouldn't add extra cost, it's just doing
No, that could be done. That's not that difficult. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to having ARIC members there, absolutely not. The more the merrier, I think, because it's historically it's just a tick and flick exercise. So by all means, I endorse everyone in this committee to come along.
So it'd just be, generally speaking, it's at a time of their choosing. We sort of have a little say, but not a lot. So it would mean that the ARIC committee members would need to dial in when that meeting was on with the OAG, but that's more than fine. Yeah. Absolutely.
Just a question for administration. Did you get through those discussions the guidance or sort of clarity in terms of what priorities should be for the next, and again, probably do it further than 12 months, because standing up a risk management function will take longer. But yeah, did you get the sort of clarity in terms of priorities?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Happy to take more on, but we've got 3 of those as 3 primes is what I see. So we'll focus on those. There's plenty of work going on in that space, so it's just really a matter of us reporting it back with the appropriate people.
Okay. Anything further? Sorry, I can't see you anymore. Which books? No, all good. So I can't remember who moved this motion, but I think.
Anthony Lee, I think.
So we're happy to close the debate.
Yes.
Okay, good. So shall now put this to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, we just.
What? Yep, we got you, Wendy. We saw your hand.
We got it. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. That was good. So the next item is 7.1.5, the internal audit quarterly report, March 2026. Please be advised that an updated attachment has been circulated and uploaded to the agenda. As presented before you, the recommendation reads that the committee adopts the report. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Mr. Middleton. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mike Whitterbrooks. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I guess from me, through the chair, is the I just want to see a bit more information around the overdue actions. I mean, it does state on one page, there's 14 actions in progress, 10 actions are not yet been commenced. So it says on the next page, go down and see the next page, and then it doesn't really give us a broad, it gives a very, very broad, should I say, outcome of what they actually are. In relation to these items, being the ARIC, I would say there should be a bit more clarity on what these exactly are. But also, and I don't know, it irks me every single time for the whole period I've been involved with council, it's always something to do with training. Now, I understand training is important and ongoing, but surely we must get to the point where, it doesn't add any value, we take it off, or we just expedite it and get it done. It just irks me to continually see training as a gap. That's my comments on that one.
Thank you, administration. Do you want to respond?
Well, sure. I'll have a crack. After that very prominent comment. I think the only thing is we put training on there specifically. And I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but particularly new people or new changes to policy or whatever, we do need to keep making sure they understand. We do not expect that they will have read it, so sometimes we do have to have training. It's not the be all and end all, I agree with you. It's just part of it. So there are some things that from time to time, if we see a trend on something, we will go, well, we need to make sure they are very on top of that. If they can't get it, then more aggressive action is taken. So I do need to make sure they understand before I remove certain liberties.
Just on training, sorry, is there like a role specific? So obviously you have a like a role description, and then is there a training aligned to that? So obviously, if you're in procurement, it's more of a priority to learn the procurement phase, because we're dealing with cash. It'd be more important for them in the procurement phase or whatever than what it would be for others, to try and get that off the list. Because I mean, to me, it's just it's always on there. It appears to be unmeasurable unless you guys measure it internally, and then provide a report around that. So if you're employed for 3 months, you have to have X training done in relation to finances to meet that expectation and then provide that report to us. I think that would be beneficial. I'm just putting it out there for solutions.
Okay, so I want to be really clear between normal training and this training. So the normal training, yes, look, one of the things we are working towards, we're not there yet, having more job-specific training, and that's really around controlling which things they attend and don't attend. That's more of a generic thing. In your induction process here, there's a number of trainings that everyone has to do. It's compulsory. Anyone who touches money or makes recommendations or whatever, they do need procurement trainings to know their part. There has only been one occasion that I have had to withdraw someone's purchasing authority, which we have done, but we went through a process. We'll explain it to that person. If I use procurement as a measure, we'd go and explain why they're doing a breach. The breach is not probably the right word, not complying with the policy the way we want it applied with. And we give them the opportunity to rectify that over time. If we continue to see that they can't get it, and it's not that complicated, we will remove their authority. Now, I've only had to do that once, thank goodness, because we teach them and hopefully they learn. Every now and then, I won't call it laziness, but I'll call it attention to detail needs to be pricked a little bit more. So there are certain trainings that I think are prudent to do, refresher training, I would call it, to make sure they're really clear on it. And it's certainly, if we've changed the policy, we want to make sure they understand how it applies to them, because they may not understand. We want to be really clear on that. But training isn't the be-all and end-all. It's only used as a tool to make sure that the people do understand. I have an obligation, I guess, and the executive have an obligation to make sure that people do understand what they've got to do in relation to our rules, particularly if we change them. So I take your point, but there are certain stuff that we just do generally, we not expect. You have to do it as your induction process. But the second part is where we're trying to fine tune, and we might toughen up some rules. We want to make sure they understand and don't break those rules. Give them an opportunity to get it, and sometimes they still don't get it, and we've got to retrain them again. But if they don't get it, they get sort of certain privileges moved from them, or they no longer work for us. So we're trying to keep our staff, and we're trying to make sure they understand the rules. I can't answer any other way than that, but training isn't the answer to everything. It's just one of the tools that we have in the toolkit.
Thank you. So I guess.
Sorry, there was a two-party question. So training was one portion. The other one was around the clarity of the overdue actions, please.
Yes. And I was going to actually concur with your point, and that's great. Yeah. So if I may just add to this, I agree completely with you in terms of. I got a few comments on this report because it doesn't give us any sort of clarity on what those are overdue, how long they've been overdue for. So I would be inclined to defer that report, like the adoption of the report, to the next one. And I've provided already some comments, but I want to re-emphasize here that how late are they? How critical are those action plans? what are they actually, as you said, what are they those? So those 10 overdue, and I guess having more clarity around, corporate services and executive for me, like just knowing which part is it? Is it HR? Is it procurement? What is it exactly? So, and when do we plan to complete those actions? Because at the moment we don't have that clarity. And on top of that, if I may, and then I'll let administration respond, we can't have a comment in this report saying we're waiting management response, because that just means we don't know when it's going to be done. So yeah, training seems to be a sort of, we'll sort it out. But if we can get that granularity, I think it would ease some of our concerns. So yeah, keen to hear from administration on that.
I can't talk to the overdue items, and I won't get Michael to do that. I do think we can give some clarity to this. We have been on top of it up until recently. We've been on top of these overdue, so this probably hasn't come up as much as it has just now. Certainly, we can give some more clarity on that. I think probably, and I've no issue with this. I think this is a reasonable request actually. How we're going to remedy the overdue is very, very easy, because some of them we already have got the solution. We just haven't told you what it is, and that could be in here very simply. So, yeah, sure, we can do that. But Michael, do you want to talk about the overdues?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to give that further level of granularity and clarity of the issues in leading into the criticalness and all of that as well. And so happy to accept that recommendation.
Yeah. And if I may also have a suggestion as well, there should be also the action plan coming out of the OAG audits. And they are not on theirs from what I understand. And there's nothing more frustrating for the OAG than when they come in and there is the same recommendation over and over. And it's just not a great look if we haven't addressed those repeat findings. So that's probably something I would be keen for administration to focus on. It's just getting those OAG at least sorted out. And again, just as an idea, what we do in other local government is that, if they are very minor and delayed by 1 month, we don't necessarily need to hear about it. But what we're really keen about is the critical that have been, for 6, 12 months. We actually don't know how long. And having some commitment, I think the accountability is really important in that space. And having a clear owners and clear commitment in terms of when this will be done. And, things sometimes go wrong, or you just need more time because you underestimated, how much you needed to get done. And that's okay. I think, I think as committee members, we just want more clarity, I think.
Look, and I think if I can just add, I think we may have got a bit ambitious on what we could achieve in that period. So that's okay. But we also know that we need to get these things signed off. So it's not like we don't have answers to the overdue to bring him back online. But we need to demonstrate, we need to show what that is. I'm good with that.
Yeah, so really just having a sort of original completion date, what you thought it was, and then you just draw a line in the sand and say, well, now this is the committed completion date, because otherwise you're just going to come up, with overdue over time. So, yeah, consider Mike Whitterbrooks. Did you have any questions? Sorry, I couldn't see. No,
that's all good. Thank you. No, Anthony raised that question that I was wondering about this, that people need training. Yes, they do need training and correcting. But, that was a concern I had too, that we always hear that they need training. Of course they do. But thank you.
No worries, thank you. So I guess, in line with what I said and heard, are we sort of comfortable to defer maybe that motion to next, Eric, with a proper... and I think we got the debate. Thank you, Josh, to putting it that the debate be adjourned in accordance with 11.6 of the Shire of East Pilbara meeting procedures local law, and the motion be considered as an item of business at the next meeting of the committee. Are we happy with that procedural motion? I'm happy to move it, but I'll need a second.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There needs to be a bucket load more information in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 7.16, ARIC meeting dates for 2026. Sorry, is that the right one? I think it is. Yep. Yep. As presented before you, the recommendation reads that the committee sets the dates, time, and places for committee meetings as listed below to be published in accordance with Reg 12(2)B of the Local Government Administration Regulation 1996. I won't list all the meeting dates, but you have it in front of you. So I'm happy to move this motion with some comments for consideration. Can I get a second? Thank you, President Middleton. The first question I have for councillors, I suppose, is whether or not the 2 p.m. time works for everyone. Noting, I believe you got a council workshop at 5 o'clock, but just wanted to know in terms of, Councillor McQuitter Brooks, you got a question or comment?
Yes, but it was just around those meeting times. If we have a council workshop following, that's fine for on the Wednesdays where there is a council workshop following, because the remote councillors would generally attend that council workshop online. And so the audit risk would probably be the same. I have a concern with the Wednesday, the 9th of December meeting. I would prefer to see that on Thursday, the 10th, for purely selfish reasons. But in terms of the timing of 2 o'clock and immediately before a council workshop, I have no problem with that.
Yes.
Sorry, Wednesday, 2 o'clock affects me greatly on every day, every Wednesday. I've got 2:30 appointments till 3:30.
Would you prefer a different day of the week?
Thursday be fine.
Thursday?
Thursday, yes.
I don't think we care which day of the week it is, so if Thursday works for you.
Board meetings is always Wednesdays.
We can manage that. We can manage that, it's all right.
So you're happy to move to every Thursday that we got here, just pushing by one day, is that what we're all saying? I mean, obviously I come from Perth, yeah, just, it's what suits everyone. I suppose also what, just for consideration, is it is obviously this meeting should be open to the public. It is technically open to the public. I don't think anyone showed up, fortunately. But having it at 2 p.m. obviously makes it harder for the public to attend. But just something that I just want to raise. So I think that's fine. The only thing also I wanted to raise is that as we progress on that journey of this ARIC coming together and having more, we're asking for a little bit more information, and we've seen the work plan that it's going to increase drastically some of the reports we're getting. It might be beneficial to have a briefing session a week prior, which I think you have for council meetings. It's something we have implemented in other local government, where we basically have 1 week prior. It's just informal. You get to ask all the questions. If you think it's worth it or not, it is probably not with that level of content we got in it. I think we got a pretty good conversation today. But if you think that we need to replicate whatever you have for council meetings, then happy to consider it. But just wanted to throw it out there for your consideration, whether you think this forum is fine and we're getting all the questions, because there's pros and cons for both options.
And if I was to take pre-briefing sessions for the council meeting, I think council meetings go much smoother, if I can put it that way, because we have had the briefing session. So we've gone through any questions you have with that debate. We have actually gone through and actually answered your questions. So when you're making a decision, you can make it with some clarity and you don't require that additional information on the council day. So far, I'm going to say our audit committee meetings have been relatively short because we haven't been doing the deep dive, this is what this ARIC is all about, is more deep diving. And look, some of the papers will become more bigger. So, at some point in time, from my perspective, I think there is some value that you can ask questions and we can have answers before the next meeting, as opposed to today we've deferred one of those items where we may have been able to supplement that information if we'd had a quick briefing, because you're saying, oh, we're a bit unclear on this and a bit unclear on that. We could have provided supplementary information if I was to give some support to the idea. But maybe it's a point in time that you need to make that call.
Yeah. Happy to.
If that helps.
So consider, Marquita Brooks.
Thank you, Baptiste. Yes, I agree, but I would think that if we were to have a corporate discussion or a briefing session, a committee briefing session on the 2 weeks prior, then if there's anything that's coming up in the agenda or expecting in that agenda that needs to be included, we can make sure that that happens. I'm just looking at, we meet every 3 months, so having an agenda briefing is great once we've had time to process the agenda. So that needs to come sort of in that week before the meeting, but we would need to have our agenda another week prior to that so that we could formulate those questions. And then I don't know if we need to have some sort of a gathering 6 week mark to formulate, to make sure that we're on target for the next agenda for our meeting.
Look, that would be a little bit difficult from a administrative point of view. It's a long way. It's a long way ahead of the meeting. You know, quite frankly, I'd be more satisfied, you know, if we're giving you the paperwork a week in advance, considering that generally speaking we only have to give you 2 or 3 days. I think it's not very long, but we always give you a week because we think it's really important. Gives you opportunity to read the papers. I would suggest that if we're going to have a briefing, that it be in the week after we give you the paper, which would be the Friday before. So it could be early in the next week. I don't think we can do it weeks, Wendy. I don't think that's going to work from an administrative.
I just wanted to make sure that committee members have, through the chair, of course, that committee members have time to review the paper and then ask informed questions and make informed suggestions to enhancement of the paper before we come to the decision point. So your last suggestion, Stephen, certainly makes sense to me, is that we receive the paper a week out from the meeting, and then perhaps 3 or 4 days out from the meeting, or even 2 days out from the meeting, we have that briefing session.
Well, I'll let Josh have a comment in a second, but you know, in reality, what we do with the council meeting is you've got the whole 900, whatever it is, pages, 1,200 pages, and you've had it for a week, and we have the briefing session, which we go through the council papers with you, giving you the information and any requests for information on the Thursday, just the day before. And that's good. And that's big enough. That's good enough for the entire package. This paper will never be that big. I wouldn't imagine. I hope it's not that big, but yeah, I hope it's not that big. But so there will be plenty of time to read it. But look, Josh, you got a comment? I can know
Thank you. Through the chair, I just council members will recall the council adopted last month the agenda, briefing and council workshop policy, which provides a framework around how these things operate. It includes a mechanism whereby we publish some limited minutes, so that whilst we might have a briefing session as a closed session, we're still being transparent about what was discussed, just to manage that risk of having a shadow meeting. Those notes would be, I'd anticipate, would be published on the website prior to the committee meeting, depending on how far out. The usual practice at the moment is that the agenda briefing session takes place the day before the council meeting. And the reason, it's mainly a logistical reason. It's because many of our council members have to travel. It's something that we could go through, given that it is published 1 week in advance, and that's above the requirements of the Act. But yeah, it's mainly they've got more chance of getting all the council members, particularly those who have travelled from particularly remote areas, being in attendance. The other thing that I would say, in relation to having a meeting like weeks and weeks in advance, is that things do change. It's an ever-moving, rapidly changing world in which we live, and it takes a lot of time to prepare. There's a lead-up time in the preparation of an agenda. Like we normally have to get things pretty settled a good 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting, particularly to meet that the publication date 1 week out from the from the meeting, and it's in terms of that agenda being set by the committee can provide an indication at a preceding meeting of what it might like the CEO to prepare and include in an agenda, but there's an important arm's length distance between the committee basically setting its the items that are up for discussion. That is quite clearly the CEO's job. But in terms of having a briefing session, up to a week before, I think that's feasible. But it just depends on. It just adds a little bit more time to how long council members have to commit. And so you might have it even, I've been in some local governments where the briefing session happens like an hour before the meeting, for instance. I don't think that is particularly ideal, but there are a number of different models.
And just for the chair, I think it's worth, if you're going to have a briefing, if I give you a briefing and it's in 2 weeks' time, the meeting, things get lost in that time frame. It's good to have it closer to the meeting so that we can go through the issues and we can scramble around and get additional stuff that's not clear enough. Happy to do that. So it's not like we can do wholesale change, but what we can do is get that additional, it might even be a couple of documents, and we'll get into it and produce those documents like we do on a council day. I think we can do that. I think it needs to be in the same week as the actual audit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the night before we work out well. Now, the proposal around the change of the day to the Thursday, because we've still got the briefing sessions on the Wednesday, yeah, is that still going ahead or no? The briefing sessions on the Wednesdays? So why don't we push this meeting out to a 4 o'clock start? If we're going to have a briefing session, so today's gone for an hour, it's the first one that Baptiste has done, why don't we push the start time out to 4 o'clock, then roll into the briefing session from 5 onwards. If we have a briefing session the night before for this, then it should theoretically be less than an hour on the Wednesday.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying. The only thing I would say, what happens if you go for an hour and a half? So it just means it's fine with us. It just means that your briefing session, your workshop, may start a little later, and we'll keep you a bit longer. If the council's happy with that, we're happy with that.
Yeah, look, as I said, I don't think like this is the first one, initial one. I mean, how often are they meaty, right, historically? And if we're getting the added briefing session on the Tuesday before the Wednesday, rather than trying to meet 2 days in a row and push it out, and if we start at 4, that appeases you, Troy, because you're 2:30 to 3:30. I'm just trying to minimise the amount of time and effort that everyone has to take.
From an administration point of view, we would be happy with that, and I take your point. Because the additional information that you need would be produced at an earlier date. So yes, we can do that. They'll make the decision.
Because it works with our OCMs. We get that briefing session on the Wednesday, and then the Thursday beforehand, it's a last little bit.
I'll leave it to the chair, but I'm okay with that.
Can I just through the chair? Can I just suggest where I can see a block to that? For the Wednesday, September 23rd, I would expect you would have the day on the Thursday. My expectation is that we may have a Pilbara zone meeting, and then you have to get back to Newman in time for both meetings on the 23rd of September, unless I have the calendar wrong. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to check the calendar on when that zone meeting would be.
Can I also just point out that we can set dates, we can set the principles, and when it doesn't work, I'll change it with the
All right.
permission of the chair, of course, and the Shire president. I'll ask him as well if we can change the date, and then we can move it around. But this is just going to put it. Yeah, it's going to be around that time, and we'll work around the. You okay with that?
Yeah, the only clarification I just want to, so because I'm getting confused between OCM and the ARIC, in terms of the briefing session, say for the 17th of June, well, which now we're saying it's the 18th of June, moving to Thursday. When will we get the briefing session?
Sorry, I was planning on leaving it on the Wednesday, the 17th, so the Wednesdays.
Yep.
Because we roll into a briefing session anyway.
Oh,
So leave it on the Wednesdays,
Okay.
but push the time from 2 till 4.
Yep.
So start time, so it'll be Wednesday, 17th of June. So,
Okay.
yep, all starting at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
So it goes for an hour, is what I was proposing.
So that's the briefing session, or this is the actual meeting?
I know the
That's
actual meeting.
Yep.
4 o'clock on the Wednesday, the 17th of June.
Yep.
But then we have the briefing session the Tuesday, the day before.
No, but what's the purpose of having a briefing session just one day prior? Because the management wouldn't have time to adjust to any potential comments we would have. So it's sort of like, again, you draw on a very good example of the work plan we just discussed. If management had a heads up last week that, look, based on what we see, it's going to be difficult for us to move this motion. Can you just do, and then, your management looks at it and propose something, because now we'll be waiting, because if you do it one day prior, they won't have time to do it for the next day.
They do it currently for our OCM. They get paid the money. Come on. No,
we're
look,
very efficient.
but I think yeah, cool. I listen to what you're saying. I think we got to be conscious that it has to be a week before for the actual agenda. So maybe if it's not the day before, it's the Monday night, which is 2 nights before. So you've got time to consume it. But
So Chair, can I make this recommendation that you adopt the dates, and that the council staff will work with yourselves to work out what would be a great briefing date to fit all criteria.
Sorry, I was the one raising this. But it's a good discussion, right? Like,
it's just a bit too kind to them. That's all.
I just want to make sure we got a useful briefing session. And look, we may not do it for the 17th of June because, from what I'm hearing, we had a pretty healthy discussion. No one is shy of asking questions. So maybe we don't need it for the next one, but as we get along, into that journey, then maybe it becomes, something we implement. So yeah, we'll leave the briefing session out of this resolution. The time, so we're just going to make an amendment to move this to 4 p.m. For every Wednesdays. You happy with that? You happy?
No,
4 p.m. works for me.
4 p.m.'s great. Through the chair, 4 p.m.'s fine with me. I still am stuck on Wednesday, the 9th of December. I'm in Perth for a Pilbara Development Commission meeting and then have to fly immediately up to Newman for Thursday for our briefing session. So can we make the one on the 9th of December the 10th, please, at 4 p.m. and then the agenda session after that, please?
Yes, I think
Yeah, that's fine for me.
We're all happy with that.
For the sake of setting a date, let's set the date, and we'll change it to an appropriate date in December to work. How's that?
That sounds
That
good.
work?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. That was done. Next item, sorry, that's still new business of urgent nature. There's none. Confidential matters behind closed doors, there no. And the next meeting of the ARIC committee will be held on the 17th, I think. That's at 4 o'clock. And there'll be no further business. I now declare the Shire of Pilbara ARIC meeting of 14 April 2026 closed at 3:10. And I would like to thank everyone, the committee members and administration, for your support. Thank you very much.
So,